Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. I am your friend Ashfaq and today we are going to see 70 questions and their answers of the AZ-104 Azure Administrator exam. Let's get started. Question number 1 is you have an Azure subscription that contains an Azure Active Directory tenant named contoso.com and an Azure Kubernetes Services cluster named AKS1. An administrator reports that she is unable to grant access to AKS1 to the users in Contoso.com. You need to ensure that access to AKS1 can be granted to the Contoso.com users. What should what should you do first? So the answer for this question would be B. From the Contoso.com, create an OAuth 2.0 authorization endpoint because this is the authorization method which is supported by the Azure AD. So this is our correct answer. Question number 2 is your company has an Azure AD tenant named Wayland.com that is configured for hybrid coexistence with the on-premise Active Directory domain. You have a server named dir sync 1 that is configured as dir sync server. You create a new user account in the on-premise Active Directory. You now need to replicate the user information to Azure AD immediately. Solution: you run the start AD sync cycle policy type initial PowerShell cmdlet. Does this meet the goal? So the answer for this question would be no, because the command should contain the delta to sync the newly created user immediately. So actually this is the correct command. And note down this, it should be delta, not the initial. So we will move forward with the question number 3. Question number 3 is you have an Azure AD tenant that contains 5000 user accounts. You create a new user account named admin user 1. You need to assign the user administrative role to admin user 1. What should you do from the user account properties? So these three options are available and the correct one is B. From the directory role blade, modify the directory role because this is the correct method to assign the directory role to the any Azure AD user. We will move to question number 4. Question number 4 is you have Azure AD tenant named contoso.com that includes following users. User 1 is having role cloud device administrator and user 2 is having the role user administrator. Contoso.com includes following Windows 10 devices. Device 1 is Azure AD registered device and device 2 is Azure AD joined. You create the security groups in contoso.com. Group 1 membership type is assigned and for the group 2 membership type is dynamic device. and the honor is user 2 for both the groups. For each of the following statement, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. So from this given detail, note down one thing, that these are the two groups and these are the device group, and the owner of this group, these two group is user 2. So the first question is, user 1 can add device 2 to group 1. So user 1 is actually cloud device administrator. Cloud device administrator can join the device to Azure AD. He can delete the user from the Azure AD, but he has no rights on the both the groups. For both the groups, owner is given as user 2, not the user 1. So this would be no. And the second question is, user 2 can add device 1 to group 1. So user 2 is user administrator and he is the owner of the group 1. So this would be yes. The third one is, user 2 can add device 2 to group 2. User 2 is the owner of the group 2, but membership type for the group 2 is dynamic device, not the assigned device. So user 2 cannot add it because it is having the membership type dynamic device. So again it would be no. We will move forward to the question number 5. So the question number 5 is, you have an Azure AD tenant named Contoso Cloud on Microsoft.com. Your company has a public DNS zone for Contoso.com. You add Contoso.com as a custom domain name to Azure AD. You need to ensure that Azure can verify the domain name. Which type of DNS record should you create? So the correct answer would be MX record, because you have to create the MX or TXT record at the domain registrar. So this is our correct answer, A. Now we will move forward to the question number 6. So the question number 6 is, you have an Azure AD tenant named Adatum and an Azure subscription named subscription 1. Adatum contains a group named developers. Subscription 1 contains a resource group named dev. You need to provide the developers group with the ability to create Azure Logic app in the dev resource group. Solution: on subscription 1, you assign the dev test labs user role to the developers group. Does this meet the goal? Answer for this question would be no, because the requirement is to create the logic app in the dev resource group. So with the dev test lab user role, you can only shut down and power on the virtual machine or app. For the ability to create the Azure Logic app, you need the Logic app contributor role. So you will require the Logic app contributor role, which lets you manage Logic app. So the answer would be no. Question number 7 is, You have an Azure AD tenant. You need to create a conditional access policy that requires all users to use multi-factor authentication when they access the Azure portal. Which three settings should you configure? So to configure the multi-factor authentication, you'll have to go to security and setting of the Azure AD. Then under the assignment of the conditional access policy, you can select the users and groups, and you can select the app also. And then you will have to grant the access upon multi-factor authentication. So the correct answer would be users and groups, and second here we will select the Azure portal, and the third option would be grant. So these three options are the correct answer. Question number 8 is, you need to ensure that Azure Active Directory user named admin1 is assigned the required role to enable the traffic analytics for Azure subscription. Solution: you assign the reader role at the subscription level to admin1. Does this meet the goal? So to enable the traffic analytics at the subscription level, user must have the reader, contributor, network contributor, and honor role, or the honor role at the subscription level. So here admin1 has been given the reader role. So he will be able to enable the traffic analytics for the Azure subscription. So answer would be A, yes. Question number 9 is, you have an Azure subscription named sub1 that contains the Azure resources shown in the following table: RG1, storage 1, VNet 1. You assign an Azure policy that has the following settings: scope sub1, exclusion VNet 1 under RG1 of the sub1. Policy definition: append a tag and its value to resource. Policy enforcement enabled, and this is the tag value. You assign the tags to the resources as shown in the following table. For each of the following statement, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. So note down one thing here. We have assigned a policy on the subscription level which assigns the tags to the resources. This is the definition of the policy: append a tag and its value to the resources. And VNet 1 is the exclusion for the policy. And these are the manual tags assigned to the subscription 1, RG1, and storage and VNet 1. So note on one thing here: tags assigned to the subscription and the resource group does not inherited to the resources, but if you assign the policy, it get inherited to the resources. And if you assign the tags via policy, it will be assigned to the resources because it is coming through the policy. So the first question is RG1 has the tag to IT, tag assigned only. So policy is about append the tag to the resources. So tag through the policy will not get assigned to RG1, and the manual tag assigned to RG1 is tag to IT. So this is the correct answer. RG1 will be having only single tag which was assigned manually. So this is the correct answer. Yes. Now second question is storage 1 has the tag 1, tag 2, tag 3 and tag 4 tags assigned. So storage 1 is resource, so it will be having the inherited tag which is coming through the policy which was assigned on the subscription. So storage 1 will be having one tag, tag 4 via policy, and the second tag it will be having tag 3 which was assigned manually. But here multiple tags are mentioned. It has mentioned the tag 2 also, which will not get inherited to the storage because it is assigned to the resource group manually. Actually our storage 1 will be having only two tags, tag 4 and tag 3, but here more two tags are mentioned, so this statement is false. No. And the third and the last question is VNet 1 has the tag 2 and tag 3 tags assigned only. So VNet 1 is excluded from the tags which is getting assigned via policy. So VNet 1 will be having only single tag which we have assigned manually, which is tag 3. But here one more tag is mentioned, tag 2, which is of RG1, which will not get inherited to the VNet because it is assigned to RG1 manually. So again this statement is wrong. So yes, no. Question number 10 is you have an Azure subscription that contains the following users in the Azure Active Directory tenant named contoso.onmicrosoft.com. User 1 is global administrator, user 2 is also global administrator, user 3 is user administrator, and user 4 is the owner of the subscription. User 1 creates a new Azure AD tenant named external.contoso.onmicrosoft.com. You need to create a new user account in the external.contoso.onmicrosoft.com. Solution: you instruct user 2 to create the user account. Does that meet the goal? So here user 1 has created the external tenant which is external.contoso.onmicrosoft.com. So user 1 is having all the rights only on that tenant. User 2 is the global administrator on the contoso.onmicrosoft.com, but user 2 is not having the any right on the newly created tenant which was created by the user 1. So this is the wrong statement. User 2 cannot create the user account in the external.contoso.onmicrosoft.com. It can be created by the user 1 only. So this is no. Question number 11. You have an Azure subscription that contains the identities shown in the following table. User 1 is user, user 2 is user, but user 2 is the member of group 1. Principal 1 is managed identity, principal 2 is managed identity, but it is the member of group 1. User 1, Principal 1 and Group 1 are assigned the monitoring reader role. An action group named AG1 has the email Azure Resource Manager role notification type and is configured to email the monitoring reader role. You create an alert rule named alert1 that uses AG1. You need to identify who will receive an email notification when alert1 is triggered. Who should you identify? So note down one thing here, that service principal will not get the email. So option A and B are ruled out. User 1 and group 1 remains the monitoring reader role which can receive the email, and user 2 is the member of group 1. So the correct answer would be D, user 1 and user 2, which will receive the email. Question number 12 is, you have an Azure Active Directory tenant named contoso.onmicrosoft.com that contains the users shown in the following table. User 1 is the member of group 1, user 2 is member of group 2, and user 3 is the member of group 1 and group 2. Also user 3 is the user administrator. You enable the password reset for contoso.onmicrosoft.com as shown in the password reset exhibit, and this is the exhibit. You configure the authentication method for password reset as shown in the authentication method exhibit. Number of methods required to reset are 2. Methods available to users are mobile phone and security questions. Number of questions required to register 5. Number of questions required to reset 3, and total number of questions available are 10. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. So after user 2 answers 3 security questions currently, he can reset his password immediately. So this statement is wrong because there are two methods set for the password reset. Mobile phone is also required. And if user 1 forgets her password, she can reset the password by using the mobile phone app. So note down one thing here, that password reset policy has been applied for the group 2 only, and user 1 is the member of group 1. This statement is also wrong. User 3 can add security questions to the password reset process. To be able to add the security questions to the process, you must be global administrator, but user 3 is the user administrator, so user 3 cannot add the security questions to the process. So this statement is also wrong. So no, no, and no. Question number 13 is, you have an Azure subscription that contains an Azure AD tenant named contoso.com. The tenant is synced to the on-premise Active Directory domain. The domain contains the users shown in the following table. SecAdmin1 is security administrator, BillAdmin1 is billing administrator, user 1 is reports reader. You enable self-service password reset for all users and configure SSPR to have the following authentication methods. Number of methods required to reset Methods available to users, mobile phone and security questions. Number of questions required to register 3. Number of questions required to reset 3. You select the following security questions. These are the 3 questions. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. So note down one thing here, that by default all the administrators are enabled uh, for the self-service password reset with the to get password reset policy. With the to get password reset policy, they have options: email address, authenticator app or mobile phone. With the to get password reset policy, they don't have ability to use the security question to reset the password. So the first question is sec admin 1 must answer the following question during the self-service password reset. So sec admin 1 is administrator, so he will not be having the security question option to reset the password. So this is the wrong statement. Bill admin 1 must answer the following question during the self-service password reset. So Bill admin 1 is also administrator and he will not be having the ability to use security question during the SSPR. So this is again the wrong statement. User 1 must answer the following question during the self-service password reset. User 1 is the user and it has been assigned self-service password policy which contains the security question. So this is the correct statement. So first one is no, second one is no, and third one is yes. Question number 14 is you have an Azure subscription that contains following users in the Azure AD tenant named contoso.onmicrosoft.com. User 1 is global administrator, user 2 is again global administrator, user 3 is user administrator, and user 4 is the owner of the subscription. User 1 creates a new Azure AD tenant named external.contoso.onmicrosoft.com. You need to create new user account in external.contoso.onmicrosoft.com. Solution: you instruct user 1 to create the user account. Does that meet the goal? So that external that new tenant was created by user 1. So user 1 is having all the rights on that tenant. So this statement is correct. So answer is yes. Question number 15 is you have Azure subscription that contains the users in the following table. User 1 is the member of group 1, user 2 is the member of group 2, and user 3 is the member of group 3. The groups are configured as shown in the following table. Group 1 and group 2 are the security groups and group 3 is the Microsoft 365 group. You have a resource group named RG1 as shown in the following exhibit. So in this exhibit, note down group 1 is the owner of the RG1. For each of the following statement, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. So the first question is You can assign user to the honor role for RG1 by adding group 2 as the member of group 1. So nested group is not supported in Azure AD roles. So you cannot add the other group into the group 1 and get the honor role for the user. So this is the wrong statement. You can assign user 3 the honor role for RG1 by adding group 3 as a member of group 1. So again this is the wrong statement because nested group is not supported in the Azure AD role. You can assign user 3 the honor role for RG1 by assigning the honor role to group 3 for RG1. As of now, honor for the RG1 is the group 1. If we assign the group 3 as the honor for the RG1, then user 3 will become the honor for the RG1 because user 3 is directly member of group 3. So this statement is correct. Question number 16 is your company has a Microsoft Azure subscription. The company has data centers in Los Angeles and New York. You are configuring the two data centers as geo-clustered site for site resiliency. You need to recommend an Azure storage redundancy option. You have the following data storage requirements. Data must be stored on multiple nodes. Data must be stored on nodes in separate geographical locations. Data can be read from the secondary location as well as from the primary location. Which of the following Azure is stored redundancy options should you recommend? These are the four options given. Two major requirements we should keep in mind. The one is separate geographic location and the second one is data can be read from the secondary location as well as from the primary location. So for this we can only use the RAGRS, read only geo redundant storage. Option B is the correct option. Question number 17 is your company has an Azure subscription that includes a recovery service vault. You want to use Azure Backup to schedule a backup for your company's virtual machines to recovery service vault. Which of the following VM can you backup? Choose all that apply. So these are the five options given. First option is VMs that run Windows 10. So we can backup this virtual machine also. VMs that run Windows Server 2000 higher. We can backup this virtual machine also. VMs that have not been shut down, which means those are the power on. So we can backup the power on virtual machines also. VMs that run Debian 8.2. So we can backup the Linux virtual machine also. VM that have been shut down. We can backup the powered off virtual machine also. So correct answer is A, B, C, D, E. Question number 18 is you have an Azure subscription named subscription 1 that contains the storage account shown in the following table. Storage 1 is storage V1, storage 2 is storage V2 and contains data file and table. And storage 1 contains the data file. Storage 3 is storage V2 and contains the queue data. Storage 4 is blob storage and contains the blob data. You plan to use the Azure import export service to export data from subscription 1. You need to identify which storage account can be used to export data. What should you identify? So Note down one thing here. While you are using the import export service, for the import you and blob both, but for the export we can only use the storage type blob. So out of these four options, storage 4 is only the blob storage. So this is the only storage which can be used to export the data. So correct answer is D, storage 4. Question number 19 is, you have an Azure storage account named storage 1. You have an Azure app service app named app 1 and app named app 2 that runs in Azure container instance. Each app uses a managed identity. You need to ensure that app 1 and app 2 can read blobs from the storage 1. The solution must meet the following requirements. Minimize the number of secrets used. Ensure that app 2 can only read from storage 1 for the next 30 days. What should you configure in storage 1? For each app, to answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. So, for app 1 and app 2, we have to select the appropriate option. The first condition is minimize the number of secrets used. So we cannot use the access keys in this case. So for the app 1, we can use access control IAM. And for app 2, we have the condition that access from the storage should be for 30 days only. So for app 2, correct option is shared access signature, SAS. Question number 20 is, you have an Azure subscription that contains a storage account. You have an on-premise server named Server 1 that runs Windows Server 2016. Server 1 has 2 TB of data. You need to transfer the data to the storage account by using the Azure import export service. In which order should you perform the actions? To answer, move all action from the list of actions to the answer area and arrange them in the correct order. These are the options given in random manner. We have to arrange them in the correct manner for the given criteria or the situation. So the first step would be attach an external disk to server 1 and then run the exe. And the second would be, from the Azure portal, create an import job. And the third would be, detach the external disk from the server 1 and ship the disk to Azure data center. And fourth step is, from the Azure portal, update the import job. Question number 21 is, you have an Azure subscription named subscription 1. You create an Azure storage account named Contoso Storage, and then you create a file share named data. Which UNC path should you include in a script that references file from the data file share? To answer, drag the appropriate value to the correct targets. So in the given space, we have to move the correct option. So Contoso storage we will have to place here, then file.core.windows.net here, and data option here. So this would be the correct answer, would be like this. Question number 22. You have an Azure subscription that contains a storage Azure storage account. You plan to copy an on-premise virtual machine image to a container named VM images. You need to create the container for the planned image. Which command should you run? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. So the correct command would be azure make https my storage account .blob.core.windows.net/vm images. Azure copy make and then blob. So complete command would be like this. Question number 23 is, you have an sync group named sync1 that has a cloud endpoint. The cloud endpoint includes a file named file1.txt. Your on-premise network contains servers that run Windows Server 2016. The servers are configured as shown in the following table. Server 1 has the share1 which contains the file1.txt, file2.txt. Server 2 has the share2 which contains the file2.txt and file3.txt. You add share1 as the endpoint for sync1. 1 hour later, you add share2 as the endpoint for sync1. For each of the following statement, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. The first question is, on the cloud endpoint, file1.txt is overwritten by file1.txt from the share1. So note down one thing here, that none of the file get overwritten by other file in the sync group. If the file name is similar, then file would be renamed. It will not be overwritten. So this is the wrong answer. No. On server 1, file1.txt is overwritten by file1.txt from the cloud endpoint. No. File1.txt from share1 replicates to share2. So this is the correct statement. Yes. Question number 24. You have an Azure subscription that contains a storage account named account1. You plan to upload the disk file of a virtual machine to account1 from your on-premise network. The on-premise network uses a public IP address space of 131.107.1.00/24. You plan to use the disk file to provision an Azure virtual machine named VM1. VM1 will be attached to a virtual network named VNet1. VNet1 uses an IP address space of 192.168.0.0/24. You need to configure the account 1 to meet the following requirements. Ensure that you can upload the disk file to account 1. Ensure that you can attach the disk to VM1. Prevent all other access to account 1. Which two actions should you perform? Each correct answer present part of the solution. For this scenario, we will have to go to selected networks option of the storage account, and there we will allow the access to VNet 1 and the subnet of the VNet 1. So this is the first uh, first step for this requirement. From the networking blade of account 1, select the selected network, and once we are in the selected network and we have allowed the VNet 1 and its subnet, after that we will find the firewall option there, from where we will have to allow the public IP address so that we can upload the disk image from the on-premise network or the public network. So this is the second step. From the networking blade of the account 1, add the 131.107.1.0/24 IP address range. So correct answer are A and C. Question number 25 is, you have an on-premise file server named server 1 that runs Windows Server 2016. You have an Azure subscription that contains an Azure file share. You deploy an Azure file storage sync service, and you create a sync group. You need to synchronize files from server 1 to Azure. Which three actions should you perform in sequence? To answer, move the appropriate action from the list of actions to the answer area and arrange them in the correct order. So first step would be install the Azure file sync agent on the server 1. Then second step would be register server 1, and third would be add a server endpoint. Question number 26 is, you have an Azure subscription that contains storage account shown in the following exhibit. This is the exhibit. Use the drop down menus to select the answer choice that completes each statement based on the information presented in the graphic. First question is, you can create a premium file share in. So note down one thing here, we can create the normal file share in the storage v2, but here question is, you can create the premium file share. So premium file share only can be created in the file storage. On the first question, this would be the correct answer, Contoso 104 only, because this is the file storage type and we can create the premium file share in this storage type only. Second one is, you can use archive access tier in. Archive access tier is not supported by the storage v1 and the premium file storage. Storage v2 and blob storage will only support the archive access tier. So correct answer is 101 and 103. Question number 27 is, you have an Azure subscription that contains the storage account shown in the following table. Storage 1 is storage v2, storage 2 is blob storage, storage 3 is blob storage, and storage 4 is file storage. You plan to manage the data stored in accounts by using lifecycle management rule. To which storage account can you apply lifecycle management rule? So we can apply the lifecycle management rule to storage v2, blob storage and blob storage. We cannot assign the lifecycle management rule to file storage. So the correct answer is storage 1, 2 and 3, which is the D. Question number 28 is, you create an Azure storage account named Contoso Storage. You plan to create a file share named data. User need to map a drive to the data file share from home computer that run Windows 10. Which outbound port should you open between the home computer and the data file share? Windows share works on the SMB protocol and SMB works on the TCP 445. So the correct answer is C 445. Question number 29 is, you have an Azure subscription that contains the storage account shown in the following table. Storage 1 is storage v2 and it is GeoZone redundant storage GZRS. Storage 2 is blob storage and it is RAGRS. Storage 3 is blob storage, which is the zone redundant storage. You need to identify which storage account support lifecycle management and which storage account support moving data to archive access tier. Which storage account should you use? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. So lifecycle management we can use in all three storage accounts. This would be the correct answer: storage 1, storage 2 and storage 3. And archive access tier, is only supported in LRS, GRS and RAGRS. The storage 1 is GZRS and the storage 3 is ZRS. These two storage are not supported for the archive access tier. Only storage 2 is supported, which is RAGRS. So correct answer is this. Storage 2 only. Question number 30 is, you have an Azure subscription that contains a resource group named RG1. You plan to use the ARM template named template1 to deploy resources. The solution must meet the following requirements. Deploy a new resources to RG1. Remove all the existing resources from RG1 before deploying the new resources. How should you complete the command? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. So note down one thing here, while we use the command new az resource group deployment, means we are deploying the resources in the existing resource group. and here we have given the resource group name as rg1. So in this blank we will have to give this option, resource group name, and the condition is remove all the existing resources from rg1 before deploying the new resources. So we will have to use here complete mode, because in the complete mode it removes all the resources present in the resource group. Question number 31 is, your company has 3 virtual machines that are included in an availability set. You try to resize one of the VMs, which returns an allocation failure message. It is imperative that the VM is resized. Which of the following action should you take? If we want to resize the VM, any of the VM in the availability set, then we will have to stop all the VMs present in the availability set. So correct answer would be C. You should stop all 3 VMs. Question number 32 is, you have an Azure virtual machine that has a single data disk. You have been tasked with attaching the data disk to another Azure VM. You need to make sure that your strategy allows for the virtual machines to be offline for the least amount of time possible. Which of the following is the action you should take first? And the 4 options have been given here. So you can simply detach a data disk from the one VM and attach it to another VM without stopping either of the VM. So the first action that we will perform is detach the data disk. Option C. Question number 33 is, your company has an Azure subscription. You need to deploy a number of Azure virtual machines using ARM template. You have been informed that the VMs will be included in a single availability set. You are required to make sure that the ARM template you configure allows for as many VMs as possible to remain accessible in the event of fabric failure or maintenance. Which of the following is the value that you should configure for the platform fault domain count property? So we will configure the max value, and the max value for the fault domain is 2 or 3 depending on the region. So we will configure the max value for the fault domain count. Question number 34 is, your company has a Microsoft SQL Server always on availability group configured on their Azure virtual machines. You need to configure an Azure internal load balancer as a listener for the availability group. Solution, you enable floating IP. Does the solution meet the goal? So yes, this is the correct statement, because we have the always on availability group. So if we are using the internal load balancer, then we will have to use the floating IP address. So correct answer is yes. Question number 35 is, you have Azure resources shown in the following exhibit, and this is the exhibit. You plan to track resource usage and prevent the deletion of resources. To which resources can you apply logs and tags? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. So locks and tags are available for the subscription, resource group and resources. So the correct answer is for the log sub1, rg1 and vm1 only, and for the tags also sub1, rg1 and vm1 only. Question number 36 is, you configure the custom role shown in following exhibit. This is the exhibit of the custom role. Use the drop down menus to select the answer choice that completes each statement based on the information presented in the graphic. So this is the custom role exhibit. Uh, the role name is role 1 and assignable scope is this subscription, means it has been assigned on the subscription, and these are the actions. Not actions is blank, data actions is blank, not data actions is blank. Okay, so we will move forward with the questions. First question is, to ensure that users can sign into virtual machine that are assigned role 1, modify dash section. So if you want to assign the capability to the users who has the role 1 assigned to log into virtual machine, you will have to mention those those things here under the data actions. So the correct answer would be data action. And the second question is, to ensure that role 1 can be assigned only to resource group named rg1, modify dash section. So from the exhibit we can see as of now it has been assigned to subscription. So if we want to assign this role 1 to the rg1 only, then we will have to make changes here under the assignable scopes. So the correct answer for the second question is assignable scopes. Question number 37 is, you have an Azure subscription named subscription 1 that contains the resources shown in the following table. These are the resources provided. In storage 1, you create a blob container named blob1 and a file share named share1. Which resources can be backed up to vault 1 and vault 2? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. Note down one thing, in the recovery service vault, we can only backup virtual machine and file share. So the first question is, can use vault 1 for backup? So first thing, vault 1 is in central US and the VM1 is in central US. We have created the file share also in the storage, but it is in West US. So we cannot backup the file share into the Vault 1. So for the first question, the correct answer is VM1 only. Can use Vault 2 for backup. So Vault 2 is in West US and our storage 1 is also in West US. So in Vault 2 we can backup the share 1 only. In the storage 1 we have configured the blob container also, but blob container cannot be backed up to the recovery service vault. Question number 38 is, you have an app named app1 that runs on two Azure virtual machines named VM1 and VM2. You plan to implement an Azure availability set for app1. The solution must ensure that app1 is available during planned maintenance for hardware hosting VM1 and VM2. What should you include in the availability set? So while we are creating the availability set, we have to mention two things. For the outage or sudden shutdown, we mention the fault domain, and for the planned maintenance we mention the update domain. So here the key point is, it is mentioned that during planned maintenance. So for the planned maintenance we will use the update domain. So maximum count is given here is 2. So correct answer is 2 update domains. Question number 39 is, you have an Azure subscription named subscription 1 that contains the resources shown in the following table. These are the resources provided here. You plan to configure Azure Backup Report for Vault 1. You are configuring the diagnostic setting for Azure Backup Reports log. Which storage account and which log analytics workspace can you use for the Azure Backup Reports of Vault 1? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. So first question is storage account. Notice here that Vault 1 is in West Europe. So the storage account should also be in the same region. So we have the storage account 3. Storage 3 is in West Europe. So for the first question, correct answer would be storage 3 only. And the second question is log analytics workspace. Log analytics workspace can be created independent of the Vault region. So for the Vault 1, we can use all three provided log analytics workspace. So log analytics workspace, correct answer is analytics 1, 2 and 3. All three we can use. Question number 40 is, you have an app service plans shown in the following table. ASP1 is Windows and location is West US. ASP2 is Windows and location is Central US. ASP3 is Linux and location is West US. You plan to create the Azure web apps shown in the following table. Web app 1 is having runtime stack .NET Core 3.0 and location is West US. And web app 2 runtime stack is ASP.NET 4.7 and location is West US. You need to identify which app service plans can be used for the web apps. What should you identify? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. So the location of web app is the location of app service plan. So for web app 1 and web app 2 both are in West US, and web app 1 is having runtime stack .NET Core, and the .NET Core runs on the Windows and Linux both. So for the web app 1 we can use ASP1 and ASP3 because both are in West US. So for the web app 1, correct answer is ASP1 and ASP3 only. And for the web app 2, web app 2 is ASP.NET and location is West US. So ASP.NET cannot be executed or run on the Linux. Service plan should be Windows only. So we can use the ASP1 only because it is Windows operating system and location is West US. For web app 2, correct answer is ASP1 only. Question number 41 is, you create a virtual machine scale set named scale 1. Scale 1 is configured as shown in the following exhibit. Initial instance count is 4. Scaling set to custom. Minimum number of VMs 2. Maximum number of VMs 20. Scale out. CPU threshold percent 80. Duration in minutes 5. Number of VMs to increase by 2. Scale in. CPU threshold percent 30. Number of VMs to decrease by 4. Use the drop-down menus to select the answer choice that completes each statement based on the information presented in the graphic. So the first question is, if scale 1 is utilized at 85% for 6 minutes after it is deployed, scale 1 will be running dash. So is 85% for 6 minutes means it will scale out. Because for the scale out we have the limit 80% and duration is 5 minutes. So initial count is 4, so it will scale out by 2, so total count would be 6. So for the first question, correct answer is 6 virtual machines. Second question is, if scale 1 is first utilized at 25% for 6 minutes after it is deployed and then utilized at 50% for 6 minutes, scale 1 will be running dash. So 25% for the 6 minutes means it will scale in. For the scale in we have the threshold limit is CPU percent 30 and number of VMs to decrease by 4. So initial count is 4, so it will not go to 0 because we have the minimum number of VM policy also here, which is 2. So it will be at 2, which is the minimum number of VMs. So the correct answer for the second question is 2, 2 virtual machine. Question number 42 is, you have Azure Resource Manager template named template1 that is used to deploy an Azure virtual machine. Template1 contains the following text. So this is the text given here. The variable section in template1 contains the following text. Location West Europe. The resources section in template1 contains the following text, and this is the text given for the resources section. You need to deploy the virtual machine to West US location by using template1. What should you do? Always keep in mind the resources from the template will be deployed to the location specified in the resources section. So in the resources section, location is mentioned as West Europe. So if we want to deploy to West US, then we will have to modify the location in the resources section to West US. So correct answer would be A. Modify the location in the resources section to West US. Question number 43 is, you have an Azure virtual machine named VM1. VM1 was deployed by using a custom Azure Resource Manager template named arm1.json. You receive a notification that VM1 will be affected by maintenance. You need to move VM1 to different host immediately. Solution: from the redeploy billet, you click redeploy. Does this meet the goal? Yes, this statement is correct. So answer is yes. Using the redeploy billet, we can move the virtual machine to different host immediately. Question number 44 is, you plan to deploy a several Azure virtual machines that will run Windows Server 2019 in virtual machine skill set by using an ARM template. You need to ensure that Nginx is available on all virtual machines after they are deployed. What should you use? So we will have to use desired state configuration extension. So correct answer is B, a desired state configuration extension, which is called DSC. Question number 45 is, you have an Azure subscription named Sub1. You plan to deploy a multi-tiered application that will contain the tiers shown in the following table. Front-end web server, accessible from the internet, yes. Number of virtual machines, 10. Business logic, accessible from the internet, no. And number of virtual machines, 100. Microsoft SQL Server databases, accessible from the internet, no. And the number of virtual machines, 5. You need to recommend a networking solution to meet the following requirements. Ensure that communication between the web servers and the business logic tiers spread equally across the virtual machines. Protect the web servers from SQL injection attacks. Which Azure resources should you recommend for each requirement? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. So the first question is, ensure that communication between the web servers and the business logic tier is spread equally across the virtual machines. So to fulfill this condition, we will have to use an internal load balancer. And the second question is protect the web server from SQL injection attacks. So for protecting the web servers from the SQL injection attacks, the effective solution is using the application gateway, which uses the WFTR, Web Application Firewall. So the correct answer for the second question is an application gateway that uses the WFTR. Question number 46 is your company's Azure subscription includes two Azure networks named Virtual Network A and Virtual Network B. Virtual Network A includes a VPN gateway that is configured to make use of static routing. Also, a site-to-site VPN connection exists between your company's on-premise network and Virtual Network A. You have configured a point-to-site VPN connection to Virtual Network A from a workstation running Windows 10. After configuring virtual network peering between virtual network A and virtual network B, you confirm that you are able to access virtual network B from company's on-premise network. However, you find that you cannot establish a connection to virtual network B from the Windows 10 workstation. You have to make sure that a connection to virtual network B can be established from the Windows 10 workstation. Solution: you download and reinstall the VPN client configuration package on the Windows 10 workstation. Does the solution meet the goal? So once you have configured the point to site VPN connection from your on-premise Windows 10 system to the virtual network, and after that if you do any of the network topology changes, you will have to reinstall the VPN client configuration package on that Windows 10 workstation. This statement is correct. Answer is A, yes. Question number 47 is you have an Azure DNS zone named adatum.com. You need to delegate a subdomain named research.adatum.com to a different DNS server in Azure. What should you do? So in this case, you will have to create an NS record named research in the adatum.com zone. Question number 48. You have a registered DNS domain named contoso.com. You create a public Azure DNS zone named contoso.com. You need to ensure that records created in the contoso.com zone are resolvable from the internet. What should you do? In these four options, B and C we can exclude. SOA record is not the related answer, and you will not have to create the NS record in contoso.com. Instead, you will have to create the NS record in the domain register. So correct answer is D. Modify the NS record in the DNS domain registrar. Question number 49. You have an Azure subscription named subscription 1 that contains a virtual network VNet 1. You add the users in the following table. User 1 is the owner, user 2 is the security admin, and user 3 is the network contributor. Which user can perform each configuration? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. Add a subnet to VNet1. So this can be done by network contributor and the owner. So answer would be user 1 and user 3. The second question is assign a user to the reader role to VNet1. So role assignment can be done by the owner only. So correct answer for this would be user 1 only. Question number 50 is you have an Azure subscription that contains 10 virtual machines, a key vault named Vault 1, a network security group named Energy 1. All the resources are deployed to the East US Azure region. The virtual machines are protected by the Energy 1. Energy 1 is configured to block all outbound traffic to the internet. You need to ensure that the virtual machine can access Vault 1. The solution must use the principle of least privilege and minimize administrative effort. What should you configure as the destination of the outbound security rule for Energy 1? So, out of from these three options, correct answer is a service tag because you can configure the service tag as the destination in the security rule of the network security group. So, correct answer is B, service tag. Question number 51 is you have an Azure subscription named Subscription 1. Subscription 1 contains a virtual machine named VM1. You install and configure a web server and a DNS server on VM1. VM1 has the effective network security rule shown in the following exhibit. So this is the exhibit of the rule of network security group. Use the drop down menus to select the answer choice that completes each statement based on the information presented in the graphic. Note one thing, in the virtual machine we have two roles. One is web server and second one is DNS. Web server works on port 80 and DNS works on port 53. So in this exhibit, if you see here, rule 2 rule 2 is blocking port 50 to 60. Action is deny. So rule 2 will block the port 53. So DNS will not work. So first question is internet users. So answer would be web server only because DNS is getting blocked. Can connect to only the web server on VM1. And the second question is if you delete rule 2 internet users. So if we delete the rule 2 then both will be accessible, web and DNS both. So for the second question answer would be can connect to web server and the DNS server on VM1. Question number 52 is you have an Azure subscription that contains two virtual networks named VNet 1 and VNet 2. Virtual machines connect to virtual network. The virtual networks have the address space and subnets configured as shown in the following table. So these are the VNet details provided. You need to add the address space of 10.33.0.0/16 to VNet 1. The solution must ensure that the host on VNet 1 and VNet 2 can communicate. Which three actions should you perform in sequence? To answer, move the appropriate actions from the list of actions to the answer area and arrange them in the correct order. One thing to notice here, we have the pairing between VNet 1 and VNet 2, and VNet 1 is having the address space 10.1.0.0/16, and we need to add 10.33.0.0/16 to VNet 1. So the first step would be remove the pairing between VNet 1 and VNet 2. So this is our first step. Once pairing is removed, we will add the address space 10.33.0.0/16 address space to VNet 1. So this would be our second step. Then we will recreate the pairing between VNet 1 and VNet 2. Recreate the pairing between VNet 1 and VNet 2. This will be the third step. Question number 53 is, you have Azure virtual machines that run Windows Server 2019 and are configured as shown in the following table. So these are the details provided for the VM1 and VM2. You create a private Azure DNS zone named adatum.com. You configure the adatum.com zone to allow auto registration from VNet 1. Which A records will be added to the adatum.com zone for each virtual machine? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. So note one thing here, when you uh, uh, allow the registration from the any virtual network to the private DNS zone, then the A records of the private IP addresses of the virtual machines get created. So A record for VM1, so correct answer is private IP address only. A record for VM2, correct answer is private IP address only. Question number 54 is, you have an Azure virtual network named VNet1 that connects to your on-premise network by using site-to-site VPN. VNet1 contains one subnet named subnet1. Subnet1 is associated to the network security group named NSG1. Subnet1 contains a basic internal load balancer named ILB1. ILB1 has three Azure virtual machines in the backend pool. You need to collect data about the IP addresses that connects to ILB1. You must be able to run the interactive queries from the Azure portal against the collected data. What should you do? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. Resource to create. So we will have to create the log analytics workspace. By that we can collect the data for all the requests we are coming to ILB1. So resource to create an Azure log analytics workspace. Resource on which to enable diagnostic. We will have to enable the energy. If we enable the diagnostic on the energy, it will be having all the details of the request which are connecting to internal load balancer. We will move forward with the next question. Question number 55 is, you have an Azure subscription named subscription 1 that contains the virtual networks in the following table. VNet 1 is having two subnets and VNet 2 is having one subnet. Subscription 1 contains the virtual machine in the following table. So these are the virtual machine details. In subscription 1, you create a load balancer that has following configuration. Name is LB1, SKU is basic, type internal, subnet is subnet 12, virtual network is VNet 1. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. So note one thing here, we have the basic SKU, load balancer of the basic SKU. So if we are using the basic SKU, then all the virtual machines should be in same availability set. If we want to use the virtual machines out of the availability set or the non-availability set virtual machines, then we will have to use the standard SKU for the load balancer. But here we have basic SKU. So the first question is LB1 can balance the traffic between VMN1 and VM2. So this statement is correct because VM1 and VM2 are the part of availability set AS1. So yes. Second question is LB1 can balance the traffic between VM3 and VM4. So this statement is wrong because VM3 and VM4 are not the part of any availability set. LB1 can balance the traffic between VM5 and VM6. Again, VM5 and VM6 are not the part of availability set, so this is also no. Question number 56 is you have an on-premise network that you plan to connect to Azure by using site-to-site VPN. In Azure, you have an Azure virtual network named VNet1 that uses an address space of 10.0.0.0/16. VNet1 contains a subnet named subnet1 that uses an address space of 10.0.0.0/24. You need to create a site-to-site VPN to Azure. Which four actions should you perform in sequence? To answer, move the appropriate action from the list of actions to the answer area and arrange them in the correct order. So to create the site-to-site VPN, the correct order is, first of all, we will have to create a gateway subnet. Then we will create a VPN gateway. After that, we will create a local gateway. And then we will create a VPN connection. So this is the correct order. Question number 57 is you have an Azure subscription that contains three virtual networks named VNet1, VNet2 and VNet3. Pairing for VNet1 is configured as shown in following exhibit. So this is the exhibit for the VNet1. Pairing for VNet2 is configured as shown in the following exhibit. This is the pairing exhibit for the VNet2. Pairing for the VNet3 is configured as shown in following exhibit. So this is the exhibit of the pairing for VNet3. How can packets be routed between the virtual networks? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. So in the VNet 1 pairing, note down one thing. VNet 1 is paired with the VNet 2 and VNet 3, while VNet 2 is paired with the VNet 1 only and VNet 3 is paired with the VNet 1 only, which means there is no pairing between the VNet 2 and VNet 3. For the pairing to work, note one thing: if VNet 1 is paired with the VNet 3, then VNet 3 should also be paired with the VNet 1 for pairing to work properly. Both the directions should be paired. So the first question is, packet from VNet 1 can be routed to. So in all three exhibit we can see VNet 1 is paired with the VNet 2 and VNet 3. So the correct answer would be VNet 2 and VNet 3. And the second question is, packet from VNet 2 can be routed to. So by referring to all three exhibit, we can conclude that VNet 2 is paired with the VNet 1 only. So answer would be VNet 1 only. Question number 58 is, you have a computer named computer 1 that has a point-to-site VPN connection to an Azure virtual network named VNet 1. The point-to-site connection uses a self-signed certificate. From Azure, you download and install the VPN client configuration package on a computer named computer 2. You need to ensure that you can establish a point-to-site VPN connection to VNet 1 from computer 2. Solution: you modify the Azure Active Directory authentication policies. Does this meet the goal? So note down one thing here, that computer 1 is successfully connected to the point-to-site VPN, and point-to-site connection uses a self-signed certificate. So the solution statement which is given here is not correct. So answer would be no. Instead, we should export the client certificate from computer 1 and install the certificate on computer 2. Question number 59 is, you plan to use Azure Network Watcher to perform the following task. Task 1 is, identify a security rule that prevents a network packet from reaching an Azure virtual machine. Task 2, validate outbound connectivity from an Azure virtual machine to an external host. Which feature should you use for each task? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. So for the task 1, we can say that we can use the IP flow verify, because it identifies the rule which has dropped the packet, NSG rule which has dropped the packet. And for the task 2, because connection troubleshoot is used to monitor the packet from one VM to another, one URL to another, or from VM to FQDN. Question number 60 is, you have an Azure subscription. You plan to use an Azure Resource Manager
We
template
can
to
say
deploy a
that
virtual network named
we can
VNet1
use connection
that will
troubleshoot.
use Azure Bastion. How should you complete the template? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. So this is the template provided here. To create the Azure Bastion subnet, it should always have a name, Azure Bastion subnet. So here this would be the correct answer, Azure Bastion subnet. And the prefix to the Azure Bastion subnet should be at least /26. So here correct answer is 10.10.10.0/27. Question number 61 is, you have a virtual network named VNet1 that contains the subnet shown in the following table. Subnet 1 is 10.10.1.0/24. Subnet 2 is 10.10.2.0/24. And energy 1 is associated to subnet 1. You have Azure virtual machines that have the network configuration shown in the following table. VM1 is in subnet 1, VM2 and VM3 is in subnet 2, and these are the IP addresses of the virtual machines. And energy 2 is associated with the VM1. For energy 1, you create the inbound security rule shown in the following table. So source is subnet 2, destination is subnet 1, and destination port is TCP1433, and action is allow. For energy 2, you create the inbound security rule shown in the following table. Source is VM2, destination is VM1, destination port is TCP1433, 1433, and action is block. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. So note down one thing here, that energy 1 is associated to subnet 1 and energy 2 is associated to the NIC 1 of the VM1. So to reach the traffic from outside to VM1, it has to pass energy 1 and energy 2 both, because energy 1 is associated to subnet and it is linked to NIC of the VM1. And so energy 1, energy 2, and energy 1, it is on the subnet 1 and it is on the NIC card. So and note one thing here, that both the rules given here are inbound. So the first question is, VM2 can connect to the TCP port 1433 services on VM1. So TCP port 1433 is being blocked, being allowed by the energy 1 but being blocked by the energy 2. So when traffic travels towards the VM1 on the subnet table, it is allowed by the energy 1, but when it reaches to NIC card of the virtual machine, it get blocked by the NSG2. So, and keep one thing here, the priority will not matter here because the traffics by the NSG is restricted or allowed separately. Both the NSG will work independently. So it will be allowed from subnet from the NSG1, but it will get blocked at the NSG2. So answer is no. VM1 can connect to TCP port 1433 services on VM2. So it will be yes because both the energies are inbound. There is nothing mentioned about the outbound. So outbound traffic from the VM1 is allowed. VM2 can connect to the TCP port 1433 services on VM3. So it is also yes because none of the NSG blocks the traffic from VM2 to VM3. Question number 62 is you have downloaded an Azure Resource Manager template to deploy numerous virtual machines. The ARM template is based on a current VM but must be adapted to reference an administrator password. You need to make sure that the password cannot be stored in plain text. You are preparing to create the necessary components to achieve your goal. Which of the following should you create to achieve your goal? Answer by dragging the correct option from the list to the answer area. So in this scenario, we will use the key vault because key vault is used to create the secret containing the password, and using the access policy we allow access to the previously created secrets. On the option area we will have to give the two options, Azure Key Vault and access policy. Question number 63 is you administer a solution in Azure that is currently having performance issues. You need to find the cause of performance issues pertaining to metrics on the Azure infrastructure. Which of the following is the tool you should use? So these are the four options given. So the key point here is performance issues pertaining to metrics. So in this case, we will have to use Azure Monitor. Answer is B, Azure Monitor. Question number 64 is you have the Azure Management Group shown in the following table. So this is the table for the management group. You add subscription to the management groups as shown in the following table. So if we go by the table, first is tenant root group, and inside root we are having 1 1 management group 1 1 and 1 2, and management group 2 1 is created under the 1 1. So inside 1 1 we have created one more group 2 1. Subscription 1 has been added to 2 1. So in this we have added subscription 1 and subscription 2 has been added to management group 1 2. So here we have added subscription 2. You create the Azure policies shown in the following table. Not allowed resource type virtual network tenant root group. So here we have policy that VNet not allowed, virtual network not allowed. Okay, VNet is not allowed. Directly assigned the root management group. Allowed resource types virtual network on the management group 1 2. So here we have the policy VNet is allowed. Okay, so the first question is you can create a virtual network in subscription 1. So here we have subscription 1 and we have the policy on the root management group that VNet is not allowed. So that policy will get inherited, and in subscription 1 also we will not be able to create the virtual network. So no. Question number 2 is you can create a virtual machine in subscription 2. If we go to the policies, both the policies are about the virtual network. There is nothing mentioned about the virtual machine. So yes, we can create the virtual machine. You can add subscription 1 to management group 1 1. Subscription 1 is here. So from here to management group 1 1. Yes, that is possible. We can move the subscription between the management groups. So this is again correct. Question number 65 is you have an Azure subscription that contains the resources shown in the following table. RJ6 is the resource group and there is no tag on it. VNet 1 virtual network which is inside the resource group RJ6, and VNet 1 is having tag department D1. You assign a policy to RJ6 as shown in the following table. The scope is RJ6 exclusion none. Uh, Policy definition is apply tag and its default value. Parameter is label 1 value 1. To RJ6 you apply the tag R group RJ6. You deploy a virtual network named VNet2 to RJ6. Which tags apply to VNet1 and VNet2? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. So note down one thing here. The policy get inherited to the resources. So we have assigned the tag through the policy to the RJ6. So it will get inherited. But we have assigned one more tag manually, resource group RJ6. So it will not get inherited because it has been assigned manually. And the tag which has been assigned through the policy, it will get inherited and it will be applied to the resources. So VNet 1, one tag we have assigned to VNet 1 already, and one will come through the policy. So VNet 1 will be having department D1 and label 1 value 1. Department 1 and label value 1. So this is the correct answer for the VNet 1. And the second question is for the VNet 2. So VNet 2 is in RG6. So this manual tag will not get inherited. Only the tag through policy will get inherited to VNet 2. And the tag which is coming via policy is label value 1. So VNet 2 will be having single tag which is label value 1. So this is the correct answer, label value 1 only. Question number 66 is, you have an Azure subscription named subscription 1 that contains a virtual network named VNet 1. VNet 1 is in resource group named RG1. Subscription 1 has a user named user 1. User 1 has the following roles: reader, security admin, security reader. You need to ensure that user 1 can assign the reader role for VNet 1 to other users. What should you do? So only the owner and user access administrator can assign the roles to other users. So correct answer is B. Assign user 1 the user access administrator role for VNet 1. Question number 67 is, you have an Azure subscription named subscription 1 that contains an Azure log analytics workspace named workspace 1. You need to view the error events from a table named event. Which query should you run in workspace 1? So you will have to run the query search in event error. 68. You have an Azure subscription named subscription 1 that has a subscription ID. You need to create a custom RBAC role named CR1 that meets the following requirement. Can be assigned only to the resource group in subscription 1. Prevent the management of the access permission for the resource groups. Allow the viewing, creating, modifying and deleting of resources within the resource group. What should you specify in the assignable scope and the permission element of the definition of CR1? To answer, select the appropriate question in the answer area. So here it is clearly mentioned that can be assigned to resource group. So the assignable scope would be this resource group. We will have to select this option from the drop down, and it is mentioned that what should you specify in the permission element. So in the permission element we will have to specify Microsoft authorization. From the drop down, we will have to select this answer, Microsoft authorization. Question number 69 is, you plan to automate the deployment of virtual machine skill set that uses the Windows Server 2016 data center image. You need to ensure that when the skill set virtual machine are provisioned, they have web server components installed. Which two actions should you perform? Each correct answer present part of the solution. So you will have to perform two actions for this. A. Upload a configuration script, and D. Modify the extension profile section of the Azure Resource Manager template. So correct answer is A and D. Question number 70 is, you have an Azure virtual machine named VM1 that runs Windows Server 2016. You need to create an alert in Azure when more than two error events are logged to the system event log of VM1 within an hour. Solution: you create an event subscription on VM1. You create an alert in Azure Monitor and specify VM1 as the source. Does this meet the goal? So answer is no. You'll have to specify the log analytics workspace as the source for the alert instead of virtual machine. Here we have completed 70 questions and their answers for the AG 104 exam. If you have doubt on any question, you can ask me in the comment section. Hope you find this video helpful. A lot of effort went behind this video, so do subscribe to my channel to encourage my work. Like the video, share it with the friends and spread the knowledge. I look forward you to join me in the next video. Thank you.